Breaking down the Vikings from the perspective of a former NFL General Manager of the Year. It's Jeff Diamond's Purple Report. Presented by your select Minnesota Buick GMC dealers.
Welcome to Jeff Diamond's Purple Report, brought to you every Monday and Thursday.
Breaking down the...
Whoops, better start again. Whoops. Okay, let's try that again.
Here we go. Okay.
Vikings from the perspective of a former NFL General Manager of the Year. It's Jeff Diamond's Purple Report. Presented by your select Minnesota Buick GMC dealers.
Welcome to Jeff Diamond's Purple Report, brought to you every
Not
Monday.
yet, Jeff. Not yet,
okay.
Jeff. I got to play it one more time. Stand
Okay.
by. 3, 2, 1. Stand by.
Breaking down the Vikings from the perspective of a former NFL General Manager of the Year. It's Jeff Diamond's Purple Report. Presented by your select Minnesota Buick GMC dealers.
Welcome to Jeff Diamond's Purple Report, brought to you every Monday and Thursday during the Vikings season by your select Minnesota Buick GMC dealers in the 2025 GMC Sierra 1500 on 1500 ESPN, available 24/7 on YouTube via link from the Score North website. I'm Jeff Diamond, former Vikings GM, former Tennessee Titans president. Our producer is Robbie Rosenhaus. Does a great job getting us on the air, all of our clips and interviews, as we talk about the Vikings' big game coming up on Sunday at US Bank Stadium, high noon, against the Chicago Bears. Bears come in hot, having won 6 of their last 7 games, and they're tied for first place in the NFC North with the Lions at 6-3. The Vikings coming off that disastrous loss to the Ravens last Sunday with the 13 penalties for 102 yards, the 3 turnovers, the mistakes they made, and losing a winnable game against Baltimore, which dropped them to 4-5 and set up this big game on Sunday. And for the Vikings, Robbie, I would call this a virtual must-win, because if you drop to 4-6 and you're going to Green Bay and Seattle, it's tough sledding. So I think really important to get this win, have some momentum going into Green Bay next week, and knock these Bears down a little bit.
Yeah, and you haven't given your home fans a lot to cheer about this year. Great, you beat Jake Browning at home, but you look back to the Falcons game where they really struggled at home, the Eagles game that they could have and should have won if they just would have made that third down stop that A.J. Brown, who hasn't probably caught a pass since then, and he's been in the news the last few days. But absolutely, you painted it as a must-win, and the team is not going to paint it as such. But I guarantee you that some of the suits that's sitting upstairs are in their offices. This cannot be a game that you walk out with a loss. Where the record is and where the schedule is, this has to be a game you've circled on the calendar in the division as a victory.
Yeah, definitely true. And going into the last 2 games against the Lions and the Ravens, I said at the time the Vikings winning those games at 3-4, I said they needed to split those games because they were really tough potential games. We knew Lamar Jackson was coming back, and then going into Detroit, of course, where they hadn't won in several years. I thought they'd lose in Detroit and beat Baltimore. It ended up being just the opposite. Here we are at 4-5 for the Vikings, and now they need a win this week to get back to 500, get themselves back in the division race. The advantage they have is they're 2-0 in division games, best record among all the division teams. The Bears are 0-2 in the division, despite being 6-3 overall, and as I said, tied with the Lions for first place. So if the Vikings can get this win, get back to 500 at 5-5, be 3-0 in division games, heading to Green Bay, then they're in the race. And I think, and Detroit has to go to Philadelphia on Sunday night. Very difficult game for them. So it really sets up as a critical game. And the Vikings need to get that bad taste in their mouth out from that Baltimore game, get back in the winning column, get J.J. McCarthy going again in the right direction. And I think they have the opportunity this week against a Bears team that, yeah, they're 6-3, but Robbie, they haven't beaten a team with a winning record yet. And so, and they come in with some shaky defensive stats, gave up 42 points to Cincinnati. They're ranked 27th on defense, 26th against the pass, 24th against the rush. Vikings need to run the ball, keep Caleb Williams off the field, and that Bears offense that ranks third. But again, who have they played? And stop the run, DeAndre Swift, stop Caleb Williams scrambling, and don't let him make big plays at the end of the game. Make it a game that's decided long before the Bears get the ball on the last drive, because Williams, the last two games, has won on the final drive. And let's go to a couple of our audio highlights as we kind of look back on that opening game where the Vikings won 27-24 in Chicago, 3 fourth quarter touchdowns, 2 touchdown passes from McCarthy, 1 to Jefferson, 1 to Aaron Jones, and then he had a big touchdown run for the final score for the Vikings. They overcame a 17-6 deficit in that game. And here was that first touchdown that McCarthy threw to Justin Jefferson.
Good protection over the middle. It's caught for a touchdown. Jefferson.
Same game, another big play. McCarthy hit his clutch touchdown run late in the game. Great block from TJ Hawkinson in front of him, and that gave the Vikings a 10-point lead.
McCarthy. Pass is caught. Spinning grab by Aaron Jones. And somehow, some way, the Minnesota Vikings are on top and go for 2.
Okay, back to that touchdown run by McCarthy.
Unfortunately, Jeff, that audio clip has frozen in our system. So let's move on to the next clip, which I just played there, which was the Aaron Jones touchdown, which was in that game as well.
Yeah, and should we move on to the Javon Hargrave sack? Can we do that?
We can do that as well. Yeah,
okay.
let's hear back on that one.
Yeah, that was a big sack in the fourth quarter by Javon Hargrave. Had 2 sacks in the game.
Caleb Williams has to pull it down, and it's Hargrave.
Then let's go to a clip from the Bears and Giants last week. As I mentioned, Caleb Williams had a big play at the end of that game to win the game. It's a game that the Bears probably don't win if Jackson Dart doesn't get hurt and comes out of the game in the fourth quarter with a concussion. He had run for 66 yards and 2 touchdowns, had thrown for 242 in the game, but he exited. Russell Wilson didn't do anything, and the Bears won it on this play by Caleb Williams.
A fake, a boot, Williams running, Caleb Williams into the end zone. Did he stay in bounds?
So the Bears, 6-3, coming to town for this big game coming up on Sunday. And let's talk about our great sponsor, the Select Minnesota Buick GMC dealers. GMC trucks weren't built overnight. Like every American achievement, they are a result of dedication, a dedication to mastering the art of design and the science of engineering, to building upon prior knowledge year after year, decade after decade. GMC, over 100 years dedicated to the art of engineering and the ambition to always move this country forward. We are professional grade. Well-qualified buyers get 0% APR on 2026 GMC Sierra 1500 Crew Cab models with a 5.3-liter engine with an average finance savings of $4,692. See your local GMC dealer today. Only on 5.3-liter V8 engine for purchase allowance. Length of contract limited. Must finance with GM Financial. Some customers will not qualify. Savings based on bank rate of 5.64%. Not available with lease and some other offers. Take new retail delivery by 12/1/25. The Vikings have a few injury issues going into this game. Jonathan Gennard, a big concern. He's a really critical player on that defensive front, pass rushing, run stopping. He had a huge sack on Caleb Williams in overtime last year in Chicago when the Vikings won that game. and he stopped their first overtime drive with the sack of Williams, and the Vikings then came down and won the game on the field goal. They got to get Grenard, I think, healthy. Several other players are on that injury list. Josh Oliver, I think, is another key, and looks like he may be able to make it back this week. Got to keep guys like Van Ginkel healthy, Harrison Smith, etc. But Kevin O'Connell was talking this week at his press conference about J.J. McCarthy and his development.
Not only by myself, but in conjunction with our staff and JJ himself, just continuing to coach in a way where, no stone is unturned. We're recognizing everything, progress, areas of immediate improvement. And then most importantly, what I look for is the consistency of being able to put some routine things in that category of I can expect them every time. And it becomes second nature. And sometimes when a guy's making his third or fourth start now or fifth start this week, it's a lot to ask in the midst of games, especially how they've kind of played out. But that doesn't change the fact that we're, in a business of, trying to go 1-0 this week. And JJ's going to have a great week of prep, and we'll continue to progress. And there's been a lot of encouraging things to go along with some things that, we can improve on. And he knows that, we know that. And that's just kind of where I get to be as far as the space that I'm in, and everybody's entitled to their own opinion and making that judgment whenever they feel like it's time to make that judgment. But that's kind of where I'm at.
Yeah, J.J. McCarthy is obviously going to be a key every week, and he's got to not hold the ball too long. He'll have opportunities against this Bears defense, even to run the ball. As I mentioned, Dart had a big game running against that Bears defense. If he runs, he's got to get down so he doesn't get hurt. And JJ does have a bruised hand. Was limited in practice on Wednesday, but should be fine. O'Connell expects him to be fine by Sunday. Hit his hand on a helmet when he threw the pass into the end zone to Jefferson that Jefferson dropped in the game, which can't happen with your best receiver. And so McCarthy is always a key. Other big keys, stopping the penalties, false starts, special team penalties. Another big one last week that knocked the Vikings back to the 8-yard line to stop their final drive when McLaughlin got hit with a holding call. The turnover battle is really going to be, it's always crucial, Robbie, but even almost more so this week because Chicago comes in leading the league with a plus 14 turnover ratio. They have the most takeaways in the league with 20 and the most interceptions with 13. And this was a key part of the Vikings winning formula last year when they led the league with 33 takeaways and 24 interceptions, and they had a plus 12 turnover ratio. Right now, they're minus 7, which is third worst in the league. They've got to turn that around, got to get more takeaways. They only have 9 this year. All the players and coaches are talking about it, and something that needs to happen. And this is a good week to have it happen against a team that's doing a lot of damage in that area.
Yeah, they need to run the ball, and they also need to cut down on the penalties. So they go hand in hand, especially when you're committing all those false starts and those motion penalties. You're putting your quarterback in a worse position. You see what he can do when he's got a clean pocket and he's got receivers that can catch the ball. Look at 2 weeks ago against Detroit. Everybody wants to look at last week and the struggles that he had. Lamar struggled too in that game. He didn't play his A game. So I'm willing to bet on the quarterback with a bounce back performance this week if they can run the ball, take a little bit of the load off of him, and not commit so many penalties. Make it easier on the second-year quarterback.
Yeah, that's definitely true. And running the ball is going to be key. Aaron Jones has had some big games against the Bears in the past, and I think he'll have an opportunity to do that. He's been running really well the last few weeks. Jordan Mason also. And as we said, they averaged 6.7 yards a carry in that Baltimore game. If they'd been able to run more, which they should have done, certainly it could have turned out differently. And Kevin O'Connell said a lot of that was because of being put behind the 8 ball with the penalties and 1st and 15. You can still run the ball on 1st and 15 if Aaron Jones is going to get 10 yards on the carry. So I think they have to stick with the run more, as you said, to help JJ and then be really good in pass protection against the Bears defense that has been susceptible to the big play if they can protect. And the Bears have 21 sacks. Montez Sweat, 5.5 is a problem. They need better play from Brian O'Neill, who gave up some pressures last week and had 3 false starts. He's a Pro Bowl tackle. He's got to play better. Ryan Kelly's back at practice, the original starting center. Not necessarily expecting him to be activated this week with his concussion recovery, but maybe they will because it's such a big game. We'll see what happens there. But as we said, really keys on offense. And here's JJ McCarthy talking about progressing from week to week.
Learned a lot. The biggest thing that comes to mind is just consistency. You know, that's the name of the game in this league, and any real profession is just how can you be consistently great over and over again. And you know, it all comes down to the little things in your routine. How disciplined are you with your habits? How disciplined are you with your mental thought patterns? All the little stuff that, you know, goes into play to making sure you stay in that flow for 60 minutes.
JJ, I know if you have 12 targets to Justin, you'll both expect way more than 4 completions.
Mm-hmm.
How'd the two of you kind of break down the game and move forward this week?
For us, it's just, okay, for every effect, there's a cause, and how did that cause happen? And getting into the why behind the successful plays and the plays that don't connect. And, you know, a lot of it is on me. Like, I got to be better, and, you know, he's going to say the same thing, but at the end of the day, we're all striving to just make sure that those things don't happen, and, you know, he gets the ball.
That is definitely going to be a key, and the Vikings should have an opportunity. The Bears are missing their Pro Bowl corner, Jalen Johnson. He's been out most of the season with a groin issue. Kyler Gordon, another starting corner, is out. So there should be opportunities to pick on that secondary, as we said, if they have time. But they're going to have to pick up the blitzes and do the right stuff. And JJ has to not hold the ball, get it out quick when he needs to get it out quick. And when he has time, throw it downfield to Jefferson, Addison, Jalen Naylor coming off his big game. And I think TJ Hawkinson, to me, and we talked about this the other day, it's just a mystery what's happened this season. When JJ plays, Hawkinson has only had 8 catches, and that can't happen with a Pro Bowl tight end who should be a young quarterback's. One of his best friends is that tight end on those short passes. And I understand we know that TJ has had to be held in more with Josh Oliver out the last couple of weeks with the foot injury. Hopefully Oliver comes back this week, kind of take on that pass protection, run blocking role, and Hawkinson can get out more in patterns. But I think that those are all keys. And certainly Aaron Jones, as we said, is a guy who's had success against the Bears in the past. And he talked about eliminating the mistakes.
Know that they've moved, and then they play different fronts here and there a little bit. And it seems that it's helped them out. So we see that on film, and we got to be able to handle that when they get into some of those looks.
Despite that tough loss this past weekend, you walk in that locker room, it seems like the vibes are still high, everybody's still in a good mood. How are you guys able to compartmentalize that last week's tough loss and move forward like you guys have?
Definitely knowing that nobody's just we beat ourselves. They didn't beat us, and everything that happened is controllable. That's a really good football team that we lost to, but we feel like we beat ourselves, and I feel like that's been the case in a couple of them. So that's why we're confident, and we have everything. We know we have everything that we need, and you just do the small details, and that's what really wins football games at this level is the details in your job. Not doing too much, just doing your job.
So we're going to hear from our great sponsor, the Select Minnesota Buick GMC dealers, then come back and hear from Andrew Van Ginkel from the defensive perspective, and also Bears coach Ben Johnson. So here's our great sponsor, the Select Minnesota Buick GMC dealers.
GMC trucks weren't built overnight. Like every American achievement, they are a result of dedication and the ambition to always move this country forward. We are professional grade. Well-qualified buyers get 0% APR on 2026 GMC Sierra 1500 Elevation Crew Cab models with a Turbo Max engine. That's an average finance savings of $49.49. Current eligible GMC owners combine it with $1,350 engine credit plus $1,750 bonus cash and $3,500 GMC loyalty cash to get over $11,500 in total value. That's 20% below MSRP. See your local GMC dealer today. Based on MSRP of $55,370. Must be a current owner of a 2011 model year or newer Buick or GMC vehicle, or a current lessee of a 2020 model year or newer Buick or GMC vehicle through GM Financial for at least 30 days prior to new vehicle sale. Length of contract limited. Some customers will not qualify. Savings based on a bank rate of 5.22%. Not available with lease and some other offers. Take new retail delivery by 12/1/25.
As we said, the running game is going to be a key. The Vikings need to revert to their form that they had against Detroit when they outrushed the Lions, surprisingly 142-65 in that game, a key part of that win. And then pass protection, as we said, Aaron Jones, we just heard from, he's going to be important in picking up the blitz. CJ Gardner-Johnson had 2 sacks in the game against the Giants last week. And so he's a guy that they have to be careful of in the blitzes. And as we said, stopping the run, stopping Caleb Williams. The Bears come in ranked 2nd in the league in rushing. Again, consider their opposition. Played a bunch of teams that are losing records, and then pressure Williams and try to keep him from running around. It's going to be a big challenge. He's made us a big step forward in his 2nd year as far as winning games, and I think that's what we can expect from J.J. McCarthy next year, maybe even later this year. But that certainly the experience factor has been big for Caleb Williams and Andrew Van Ginkel, the Vikings' great pass rusher, Pro Bowl edge rusher, talked about Ben Johnson and his influence on Williams and that Bears team.
Obviously, he's been doing this for a long time, a great mind, great football coach, and we had our struggles with him when he was in Detroit, and he just finds ways to attack you in a different style that you might not have seen, and he gets his playmakers the ball in space. He's very good at coaching the quarterback position, and just seeing the growth that Caleb Williams has had, it's evident that Ben Johnson plays a role in that.
Yeah, and Ben Johnson, he knows his stuff. He had a great run as the Lions offensive coordinator. Got off to a rough start this year, as we said, with losses to the Vikings and Lions, but has the Bears rebounded since then, and they come in 6-3, tied for the lead in the NFC North. And Ben Johnson talking about Caleb Williams' late game heroics, and he's done it the last couple weeks.
Running game certainly helps the pressure number. Because when a defense has respect for stopping your run game, then it certainly slows them down in their transition to pass rushers. So that could be part of it. But yeah, I think I've got a lot of confidence in our O-line right now and what they're doing. We've got some really clean pockets throughout. Tight ends are a big part of our protection scheme. So are our backs, and even our receivers get involved occasionally with our drop back pass game as well. So I think it always starts there, but there's no mistaking what Caleb can do. he feels it, and the way he evades I think it's second to none.
What can the Vikings take from that game against the Eagles, where they run a lot of similar looks with Hurts and their 2 receivers, and you look at the Bears with Roma Dunze? Like, it's going to be a tall task to really kind of defend this multifaceted Bears offense, because the Vikings did a pretty good job on Barkley in that game, but Hurts really beat them down the field.
Yeah, he did, and I hopefully they've learned from that in terms of their coverage and giving some help. Whoever is on Odunze, who's their leading receiver, Colston Loveland is a big target, their first round tight end, and he had the winning catch in the Cincinnati game a couple weeks ago, 58-yarder from Williams. So they've got to keep an eye on him. Cole Kmet is another good tight end, and Swift out of the backfield. So it's a big challenge. The Bears have a lot of weapons. Their offensive line much improved. Last year, Williams was sacked 68 times, the most in the league. This year, only 14 so far through half a season. So they've made a major improvement there. But again, that's the challenge for the Vikings, and that's where it's really important that Jonathan Grenard hopefully is back this week, because if he's not, that could be trouble. And it could end up being a high scoring game where both offenses are moving the ball. It would not surprise me at all if that's the case. Special teams, we need to talk about. Miles Price had the 2 fumbles last week. The 1 lost fumble was really crucial, the biggest play in the game, as we talked about the other day. He has got to hold on to the ball and have some big returns as he did in Detroit. And that can be a key. And the Bears have been susceptible on special teams. They gave up a 98-yard kickoff return on the opening kick in the game against Cincinnati. So that could be an opportunity for Miles Price to have a big day, but he's got to be cognizant of hanging onto the ball, protecting the ball, and I'm sure they're drilling that into him. Matt Daniels, the special teams coach, Kevin O'Connell, everybody this week, that he's got to do that. If you can't hang on to the ball, you're not going to last in the NFL as a return guy. And I think the Vikings also have an edge in the kicking game in terms of Will Reichard had a 59-yarder in Soldier Field. I think that was a stadium record in the opening game. And Cairo Santos, the Bears kicker, missed a 50-yarder in the 4th quarter of that game. So he's missed 3 field goals this year. Riker's only missed 2, and one of them we think hit a wire over in Europe. So I think the Vikings have an edge in that area too. Yeah, I think it's going to be a fun, exciting game, back and forth. And let's make our prediction, Robbie. I'll let you go first this week, since I usually go first.
So this is going to be my first game attended this year, and they usually don't win when I go to home games. But I feel like this week something tells me that they're going to come out with a big performance off of all the mistakes last week. If they would have played a high-scoring, tough game last week and lost, I think maybe their minds would have been on Green Bay. But the fact that they made all those mistakes last week and had all those turnovers and penalties, I think the coaches have their attention, and I think they're going to come out with a big effort this week and win 27-17. So that's my prediction from US Bank Stadium. Vikings win 27-17. And not only that, but they score on defense. How's that for a prediction? Okay?
Wow.
So there we go.
That would be big, because the Bears don't give it up that much with that great turnover ratio.
No.
But we'll see what happens with that. That would certainly be huge.
I was at the Lions game last year. What happened? They scored on defense, Ivan Pace, and what happened? They lost the game. So
yeah, so
hopefully that doesn't happen this time around.
No, that's right. And I kind of like I like the Vikings too. I see a higher scoring game. I think that both offenses can move the ball, on the defenses, I think that it's going to be a big challenge to contain that Bears rushing attack, but they did a good job on Swift in the opener. They held him to 53 yards and a 3.1 average. They're going to have to do that again. He's coming off an 80-yard game against the Giants, and he's got over 500 yards rushing this year. Kyle Monangai is a 7th-round rookie, had 176 yards rushing against the Bengals. So he's going to be someone that has to be watched too. But I look for the Vikings to make enough plays on offense and defense in this game. Aaron Jones running the ball, Jordan Mason running the ball. I think they can move the ball on the ground and set up the play action game. I think they can force a key turnover, as you said. And I like the Vikings, but I'm going to say it's a close one, 30-26 in this game. But hey, they'll take a W any way they can get it.
Yeah, no, that's for sure. And in the division, it's one thing that I really enjoy about this coach, and I have some questions about his play calling the last couple of weeks, but since he's been named the coach, he has emphasized division games, and I think that's a hallmark of a really good coach, because you're playing in your own little Game of Thrones here before you go out into the wild in the playoffs and play other teams. Like, you have to beat your division opponents and be the best of that lot. Yes, I understand last year was an anomaly when you had three teams which were really, really good. But that's not always going to be the case. Like, look at this year. You had the Packers losing and struggling against the Eagles, the Vikings losing against the Eagles. Obviously, the Lions losing games. So win your games in the division. That's what I like about Coach O'Connell. And
Yeah,
that's why I think they're going to win this week.
Yeah, I think that's certainly a key. Controlling your own division, and speaking of division games, and we'll quickly go around the NFL, and there's some major divisional matchups this week that'll have some separation factor, and I'm talking about Seattle is at the Rams, both teams 7-2 atop the NFC West, and that's a huge game. I like the Rams. Matthew Stafford is on fire, 20 touchdowns, no interceptions the last 6 games. Sam Darnold, I think, will have ugly visions of getting sacked 9 times by the Rams last year in the playoff game for the Vikings. I like the Rams in this game, and the Vikings will see the Seahawks in a couple weeks.
Yeah, no, I like the Rams also. They're playing great football. They destroyed the Niners last week, and I keep waiting for this Seahawks bubble to burst, and it's just not. I mean, I don't think we've mentioned Jackson Smith and Jigba, and we will when the Vikings play the Seahawks that week. But he probably, to me, is the player that nobody really is talking about. That's had an elite. Everybody wants to talk about Taylor and Darnold. That's great. But Jackson Smith and Jigba is a guy who's been fantastic this season.
Yeah, he has been. And the other big divisional matchup is Kansas City at 5-4 goes to Denver 8-2 in the AFC West. If the Chiefs are going to win their 10th straight AFC West title, they have got to win this week, because otherwise Denver's going to create too much separation in that division. I like Mahomes and Andy Reid in a big game against Bo Nix and Sean Payton. I'll take the Chiefs in this game, but it's going to be a tough one. If Patrick Surtain was playing for Denver, I might think differently, but he hasn't been back for several weeks. We'll see if he makes it back this week. A couple other big games. The Bills and Josh Allen have been up and down lately. They're 6-3, and they play another 6-3 team, the Tampa Bay Bucks, this week. It's in Buffalo. I like the Bills and Josh Allen in that game. So we're going to be back on Monday and break down the Vikings and the Bears and see if the Vikings get their mojo back, and if JJ McCarthy can figure out his cadence, and if they can stay on sides and make some big plays on both sides of the ball and get that season sweep over the Bears. We'll see what happens, and we'll be back on Monday to break it down. This has been Jeff Diamond's Purple Report, brought to you every Monday and Thursday during the Viking season by your select Minnesota Buick GMC dealers and the 2025 GMC Sierra 1500 on 1500 ESPN. Available 24/7 on YouTube via link from the Score North website. This is Jeff Diamond with Robbie Rosenhaus, and we will talk to you on Monday after Vikings and Bears.